Okay, so we've got a matchup against a Warlock. Um, I'll just go ahead and spoil it right now. This actually is up. We're going up against a Zoo deck. It turns out to be Zoo, but here I'm gonna toss, especially since I'm going first. I'm definitely tossing Doctor Boom and Elise. Um, I was just waiting to see how many cards that my opponent tossed from their hand, which that's another matchup that I like to wait for them to mulligan, aside from Paladin. But my hand is actually not that great because I don't really want to play Bran on turn 3 if I don't have to. I'd rather play Dark Cultist on turn 3. But I just go ahead and I'm going to play Mech Warper here actually over the Shadow Boxer. But the generally against Warlock in general, it's just like most of your other matchups. You want your 1 and 2 drops, and then if you're going second, then you'll want Dark Cultist, and you keep Power Shield if you have a 1 drop already in play. But I kind of want to just give a quick blurb about Reno Lock, even though this matchup is against Zoo. And this is great, by the way, that Mech Warper survives. I'm going to go with Shadow Boxer and heal the Mech Warper, I believe. Or I might just... Okay, I take the risk and go with Bran, actually. I guess because I have Elise in my hand. Yeah. Hoping that Bran goes off. So, the quick blurb on Reno Lock is that it's a matchup where tech cards like Iron Beak Owl would help out against their threats like Sylvanas, Twilight Drake, etc. Burst would also be useful to get out of the game. Things like Confuse, maybe along with Enhance on Mechano, if you kind of wanted to keep the Defender of Argus effect, but have the potential for Burst. But anyway, the Bran lives, but it gets silenced by Iron Beak Owl, which is fine. It turned out to be a decent 3-drop for me. And I decided not to play Elise and just go with Shadow Boxer and then heal up Bran to try to pick off one of the tokens, and I don't get it, unfortunately. But I wanted to also say the difference between Mech Priest and Zoo is in the types of minions each deck uses. I'm not talking about the fact that Mech Priest uses mechs versus what Zoo uses, but it's more the fact that Zoo tends to... the minions they play tend to trade stats, pure stats, for additional stickiness like Death Rattle and things of that nature. Haunted Creepers, Nerubian Eggs, Argent Squire. But you sacrifice stats to have those effects. But Zoo can do that because Zoo has many ways to buff attack power and get leverage that way. With cards like Direwolf Alpha, Power Overwhelming, Abusive Sergeant. The Priest doesn't really have that, so our minions tend to have more pure stats, with the drawback being that when our minions die, they die. And this is a perfect example here. He's got the Abusive Sergeant to buff the M token to a 3-1 to take out Northshire Cleric, whereas otherwise my board would have dominated his alone. So he gets he Arguses up. I go ahead and clear everything off, and then I decided to take the Defender of Argus with Cabal. Cabal's ridiculous in this matchup. Taking things like Imp Gang Boss, their own Brand Bronzebeard, even the Rubian Egg, those 3 are prime targets, but really pretty much anything is good to steal with Cabal because she's such a huge board swing, just like you saw there. And then he's going to try to swing it right back with the broken Knife Juggler Implosion combo, which, God, that combo is ridiculous. I really can't stand that combo. I think I'd almost rather deal with Unleash the Hounds. But anyway, despite the fact that our early game minions actually die, they don't produce tokens when they die. Because we have bigger stats, Mech Priest tends to do pretty well against Zoo because Zoo's forced to have those additional attack buffs in hand in order to trade up. But fighting for board is extremely important in this matchup. You just clear the board every turn if it doesn't take too many resources to do. Zoo needs a board in order to win. Without it, their stat buff cards are a lot less effective. Also, the variants that run Sea Giant will have to spend more mana to play the Sea Giant. The Zoo just can't win the game without winning the board. So in this game, you see the board swing back and forth quite a few times. Here I'm just going to go for the Holy Nova because I don't think it's going to get much better than right now. We're entering the late game. Zoo's running out of cards. It's going to start life tapping and playing the biggest threats possible because Zoo needs to try to end the game as fast as possible because the deck can't really go that long, even though it can keep drawing cards. But here, to my surprise, he's actually playing Ragnaros, which it's a card you do not see in Zoo very often at all. And here I'm just going to go ahead and entomb it and just take it for myself. And then play Dark Cultist and then just keep swinging. So we're even on life total, but I mean, I've pretty much got the advantage. I have 3 minions on board. His minions aren't really going to be able to match up unless it's a Sea Giant or Doomguard. But usually the Sea Giant variants don't play Doomguard. They'll play Leroy instead, at least in this metagame, for their burst. So he drops Flame Imp and Loatheb. Definitely puts up a fight against my board. But I decided to go with Upgraded Repair Bot to keep the Piloted Shredder alive and keep my board as sticky as I can make it. And being that it's turn, now I've got 10 mana this turn, I'm going to use the last of it to go ahead and play Loatheb and try to lock the game up because I've got 17 power on board. And with Zoo playing almost 100% minions in their deck, there's not going to be much that there isn't really anything that my opponent can do to try to react. But yeah, it's just going to concede and that's going to be the game. But yeah, games like that, it's pretty much how it goes against Zoo when you're using Mech Priest. But hope you guys enjoyed the game. And yeah, I will catch you in the next match.